Attractiveness is a stat in this boring, unbalanced action RPG you call real life, and like any other stats like strength or intelligence or charisma, you need to work for it. Oh sure, some people are born with high amount of stats, but it doesn't mean you're incapable of catching up or competing with them. And if we're gonna make this RPG, in some ways attractiveness is a derivative stat. Sometimes with high enough strength or intelligence or charisma, even people with 0 level of physical attractiveness, aka beauty, could have high attractiveness. Physical strength, charismatic behaviors, and high intelligence are incredibly attractive qualities to have. And ladies and gentlemen, if you value your romantic life so much that you want girls or boys to approach you left and right, you really need to work hard to keep your attractiveness level up. As a stat, attractiveness is something that you should definitely work for. Hell, forget dating. Nobody's gonna hang out with people who are dirty, messy, or just hideously unattractive in general. And nobody's gonna hang out with me after they find out that my room is a huge pile of trash. Okay, not that bad. However, there are some people who think that beauty is not something that people can have whatever opinions to, it's something that you beg for people to have a good opinion at. You have to beg people to tell you that you are beautiful. You beg people to tell you, hey, your insanely obese body is pretty beautiful. Let's go back into 2 years ago in 2015. There's an article about a realistic makeover of certain video game characters from eating disorder support group. Now, if you're going to support people with eating disorders, the first thing that you should do is to actually help them with treatment and medicine, and not, hey, let's make that sexy video game character look slightly fat. Bulimia.com, an organization supporting people struggling with eating disorders, is calling attention to unrealistic and potentially damaging body image depictions in gaming by reverse photoshopping some of its most famous characters. I love the use of the word unrealistic. It's a nice label to slap. Unrealistic means things that are impractical in the real world, things that are unlikely if not impossible to happen. You know what else is unrealistic? Dinosaurs in modern times. Do a quick Google image search for Lara Croft cosplays and you'll see that Lara Croft isn't as unrealistic as you make it out to be. I think you need to replace it with another label. Replace realistic with average. If we replace the word realistic with average, then yes, in that specific context, Lara Croft would look like that if she was your average citizen. The only problem is, Lara Croft isn't your average citizen. She's a very athletic, very strong archaeologist who shoots things with her dual pistols and she moves and runs a lot. Her body is unlikely going to be fat considering her activities. It seems like the only reason why you would Photoshop Lara Croft this way is so that you can comfort yourself. Don't worry, Lara Croft is fat too, you know. You don't have to cry in the corner again. Also, reverse photoshopping? Implying that all acts of Photoshop is to make people look beautiful. Oh, how incredibly naive, you writer of this article. Unrealistic body image depictions are a well-established problem in fashion and advertising, where camera, makeup, and photoshopping tricks can create an ideal that is literally impossible and sometimes horrifying. Video games aren't scrutinized as often, but considering that game developers are overwhelmingly male, making games marketed to young men, and that the female bodies they're designing are completely malleable and don't adhere to the basic laws of physics, it's not surprising we get characters that look like Bayonetta. You know, it's interesting that you mentioned Bayonetta, considering that Bayonetta is the most realistic thing inside the entire game. And yes, most of the video game demographics are populated with men, but that doesn't mean that Bayonetta was designed by a man. She was designed by a woman, in fact, named Mari Shimazaki. Although to be fair, Kamiya was the director of the game, so it could probably be considered a contribution to the patriarchy. The paragraph cited multiple articles. I love the article talking about basic laws of physics. They're basically talking about how gamers can't be trusted with the Dead or Alive PC version because they're going to create nude mods for the game, which is rather strange considering that in Dead or Alive 5 on PC, the game allows you to modify the breast physics into unrealistic levels. That's the equivalent of being concerned that people might fap to your models while you are fapping to it behind everybody's back. Basically my government. And even if you don't develop the game on PC, the nude mods are also available in the consoles anyway. Those damn perverted hackers. This part is pretty hilarious though. I was talking to Tecmo Koei's public relation representatives in the US before Hayashi's comments came to light. When I said I wanted to write about the softness engine, they were responsive. After I specified that I wanted to write about breast physics, they stopped returning my emails. Wow, it's almost like these people don't really care about Puritans like you. Anyway, back to the original article. Some gaming studios boast their hyper-realistic lighting techniques, touting natural cloud movements as the latest feature of their games, Bulimia.com wrote in a post to its website. And with that kind of attention to detail, it makes us wonder, why can't they accurately portray the female body? I wonder, Bulimia, is your standard of an accurate portrayal of the female body means that they have to be average in all of the physical stat? Regardless, let's check out some of these horrendous photoshops. As if the Lara Croft Photoshop wasn't cringy enough, here are a couple more. First, we have Cortana. Cortana is a freaking AI built right inside everybody's Windows 10. The designers of Cortana in the game probably didn't have time to check out the average physical stat of everybody so that the game can feel more inclusive. If you just browse in Wikipedia, her design is based on the Egyptian Queen Nefertiti. That, and she's a synthetic AI, so I don't really know why you have to make a synthetic AI to be somehow fat.
The most iconic character in the group is the star of the Tomb Raider series, Lara Croft, though Bulimia.com chose an older design from Tomb Raider The Angel of Darkness as its starting point. It's much closer to the original design from the first Tomb Raider game. As the story goes, lead graphic artist of the game Toby Gard accidentally increased Croft's breast dimension by 150%, but the rest of the creative team liked the accident so much they decided to keep it. Croft's cup size was reduced and her general appearance changed from the 2013 Tomb Raider reboot.
And for those of you who are stuck in a deserted island somewhere, here's Lara Croft in the reboot. Still ungodly freaking attractive with some serious racks. Even the in-game model, which looked a lot younger than her official art for some reason, it's still very attractive.
We chose her old character because of how iconic that iteration of her was, specifically for the objectification debate. A Bulimia.com spokesperson told Motherboard, "If you look at how her form has changed from the original, it's clear developers are listening to feedback from consumers. They're definitely moving into the right direction."
Nope. No, they don't. Lara Croft is still freaking hot in the reboot. She's a lot more girlish and young, but she's definitely still freaking hot. So I don't know what kind of move to the right direction they're talking about. And here's Jade from Mortal Kombat. Again, it doesn't make any sense considering that Jade is a fighter for like God knows how many Mortal Kombat installments out there. How can a fighter who appeared in like many Mortal Kombat games have a body like that?
Girl gamers, especially young ones, could develop a skewed image of how female bodies should look, Bulimia.com wrote. This might mark the beginning of obsessive thoughts about their own bodies and self-questioning as to why they don't align with their perceived ideal.
As in, girls would find these video game characters uncomfortable because they're setting their standards of attractiveness. What if I say yes? What if I say yes, all of these video game characters before you Photoshop them are amazingly attractive? In some ways, they're probably setting up the standards. What if they're the standards? Like, what's the problem? Is it unrealistic or is it just too hard to achieve? And I know that this is a really damn old argument to be used against them, but what about men? What about the boys who are jealous that they can't be as charming as Dante from Devil May Cry? What about the boys who are jealous that they can't have huge fighter bodies like every character in Tekken ever? Even the old fart Mishima still looks fit, and that would make the nearby beta male feminist jealous.
As the organization notes, the changes are especially noticeable since most of the female characters are half naked, which is a problem in its own right for female game characters. The scope of impact goes way beyond the people playing the games, a Bulimia.com spokesperson said. Every doll-like character they design is harming cultural perception of the female body, and in turn the women they care about. In fact, a recent study by Rosalind Warren explains it's not even something male players want to see. There's no reason this can't change.
Wait, so men don't want to look at sexy women? What is this study? Oh, it was that study from Ashley Birch, which has a sample rate of 1,400 middle to high school students. Incredibly loaded questions like, do you believe that female characters are often treated as sex objects? It's a bad study. It should not be used as a way to accurately measure people's opinions on things. Anyway, that's the end of that. So that's a really old article. That was like 2 years ago. Why do I talk about it now? Well, a new article pops in. This time they did it for the superheroes, and they're also doing it for the men. So I guess equality is at play?
This is what superheroes would look like with realistic bodies.
With a subtitle saying, looking good, superheroes. Yeah, no. Nice try jerking off to how awesome you are, but you still look like average. You know, weren't the feminists always complain about slut-shaming and that slut-shaming isn't okay? Apparently doing it to fictional characters and characters that they don't like is perfectly okay. And since they're doing it to fictional characters, they're also slut-shaming God knows how many people who try so desperately to cosplay as them.
What's one thing almost every superhero has in common? A perfect body, made out of toned muscles and zero fat.
Because they're superheroes, and they save the world daily, which gives them this body. For God's sake, I don't understand why you have to make this work. I don't understand why you have to freaking Photoshop every single superhero. Both Superman and Spider-Man did a parody of this fat superhero thing, and Spider-Man's case was pretty sad. But it's the truth.
Recovery.org, an organization that offers resources for people with mental health and or substance abuse issues, is making those perfect bodies a little more realistic by reverse photoshopping illustrations.
Oh, for God's sake, there's no such thing as a reverse Photoshop. There's only Photoshop.
According to Recovery.org, reverse Photoshop simply means reimagining what superheroes would look like if their bodies matched the body of the average viewer in the US.
Okay, at least this one is more honest than last time, but you're well aware that superheroes are not meant to be the average viewer. We don't want to see us being portrayed in comics. We are boring human beings who have to live through the tiresome routines of working and sleeping and working and repeat.
I sorta don't feel like playing my clarinet today.
We want to see people who break off our tiresome routines to fly and save the world. The only reason why you're doing this is so that you can pat people in the back saying, hey, superheroes are fat, like you too. Which is the sort of tactic that would only work for kindergartens, and even so, that's freaking insulting.
This project features 10 illustrations of comic book superheroes such as Superman, Spider-Man, Gamora, the Black Widow, Aquaman, and the Black Panther. Each illustration includes a before and after of the character. The image on the left is what superhero usually looks like. For male superheroes, that means six-pack abs and massive biceps, and for women, that means an illogically tiny waist, perfectly feminine muscles, and of course, huge breasts. The image on the right looks similar to the original character, but a bit more realistic.
Look, realistic means things that are possible in real life. Things that are possible in real life does not always mean the average person. It can also mean people who are above average or below average. As long as they exist, it's real. It's not the majority, certainly, because not a lot of people have time to do workouts, but it's possible for you to have great bodies if you work hard for it. Stop patting yourself in the back and start looking yourself in the mirror. Let's get to some of these artworks, shall we? Here we have fat middle-aged Superman that probably have some form of midlife crisis. Here we have Gamora who looks freaking pregnant. Here we have Aquaman. Oh, for God's sake, Aquaman makes less sense. Have you seen Olympic swimmers? They're pretty thin compared to other Olympic athletes, and for a good reason. Harley Quinn, which is not a hero and they made her to look like a sassy fat feminist. Black Panther. This is one hell of a way to pick up fights with black people. Black Widow, again, doesn't make sense because she's a highly trained super spy. Scarlet Witch barely has any sorts of change. Captain Marvel, good God, as if Captain Marvel isn't feminist enough, we have to change her body too. The Spider-Man one is a completely unironic take of that parody comic. And finally, Cyborg. You're really reaching out for this one. A lot of his body is made out of metal. How in the name of God can metal grow into fat?
With new releases every summer, we can see how these films positively affect their younger audiences, but it's hard to have such positive takeaways when the bodies represented on film don't mirror what a typical body looks like, the spokesperson told HuffPost. This especially rings true for a younger audience, considering research has found that some children are struggling with body image by the time they reach kindergarten. We conducted this project to see how our favorite heroes might change if their bodies were a bit more realistic and hopefully more relatable.
Nah, you conducted this project so that you can pat yourself in the back, telling yourself that this is the sort of thing your average viewers would find attractive. No, and I'm not gonna apologize for saying no. Cry in the corner and face that your body sucks, just like everyone else, or work hard to increase your attractiveness stat. No trainers or cheat engine hacks are gonna save you from this action RPG called Real Life. And by the way, this isn't even the first time. Just in that motherboard article I showed you, there's more.
Reverse photoshopping comic covers real life. When it comes to accurate depictions of the human body, comic book heroes are hardly realistic. Whether they're spouting blades from their hands or surviving decades in a deep freeze, these characters regularly push the limits of what's considered possible, but they also depart from realistic human anatomy in a more mundane sense. Almost none of them reflect the typical physique of most Americans.
Are they really supposed to represent them? These are superheroes, people who are in their most ideal shape. To think that they're supposed to be representative of the average Americans on their bodies is absolutely freaking stupid. This is practically you asking for entertainment industry senpai to not only notice you, but also beg them, I am beautiful too.
Today, 33.7% of men and 36.5% of women in the US are considered obese, and more than 2/3 are overweight. Weight gain has put millions of people at risk of heart disease, diabetes, and other preventable conditions. Meanwhile, comic book depict vastly different figures, men with massive biceps and shoulders and women with toned abs and tiny waists.
And that's fitting for all the superheroes to save the day. This of course cannot be done if you're overweight, unless an arbitrary sort of superpower changed that, and even so, being overweight is not the sort of quality that people will strive for. And here's more cancer for you. Here's Catwoman. Oh, and I recognize the artist here. It's Jim Balin. His artwork is basically all women wear tight spandex that would make Zero Suit Samus look loose. And again, this act of reverse photoshopping only made her look slightly pregnant. Not an ideal state of fighting people, to be honest. Here's Black Cat. On one hand, she looks fat in the face. On the other hand, her spine doesn't snap. So in some ways, you can see this as an improvement. And then we have Storm, and then we have Rogue. Here's Power Girl. At first, I didn't really notice the differences between the waist and like the body. But then I looked at her tits and I thought, how the hell did I not catch that? Black Widow again, Iron Man, okay, this is a little too much. It's a freaking armor. Captain America, oh, come on. You're making it as if the super soldier serum doesn't work. Look, I don't complain because they're men. I complain because all of these characters would look unrealistic and break canon if they were reverse photoshopped. Black Widow, Lara Croft, Jade, all of their roles wouldn't be possible if their bodies are like that. And Iron Man is a freaking armor, not Tony Stark's actual body, unless that particular comic is about how the armor is Tony Stark's actual body. I don't know much about Iron Man during that time, but if it was supposed to be reflecting his body, fine. But if it was his armor, then it's the artist's fault for not being able to properly draw one. Next is Batman and Poison Ivy. And now you're reaching. Let's ignore Bruce Wayne's years and years of physical training. Now you have Wonder Woman, which doesn't look that much different. You're only removing the lines that emphasize the thinness. Psylocke looks slightly pregnant again. Then finally you have Phoenix.
As you might expect, the differences are stark. When seen through a more realistic lens, the stick, thin thighs and visible rib cages vanish from the women, while the men's exaggerated V-shaped underbodies are cut down to a more reasonable size.
Reasonable to whom?
The extreme body shapes of the originals come from the fictional universes in which these characters reside, and as widespread as these images may be in our culture, this certainly isn't something that any real person could hope to achieve safely.
And you know what else isn't safe? Being fat and sitting your ass all day.
If these characters had a figure more like that of the average person, perhaps more people could look up to their favorite superhero without feeling the need to emulate an impossible physique. Ultimately, what's truly heroic is respecting yourself, your body, and your health.
No. Listen, you moron. I want my Captain America to be athletic and have great body because he's a superhero who kicks ass. And I want my superheroes to kick ass. You're basically pleasing the mindset of people who go, oh, if only those superheroes have the same body as me, as in people who have insecurities about their looks. To all of those people, the average attractiveness stat is average. You have all the opportunity to work your hard ass off to be more than just average. Yes, it's going to be painful, and in some ways it won't be safe, but sitting your ass all day isn't safe either. Sorry, but if you want to be accepted, you need to have traits that would make people to accept you. If attractiveness is one of those traits, then so be it. Work your hard ass off to raise it by either increasing your intelligence or charisma or strength or beauty, or be average just like everybody else, or just be fat and keep on begging to people that you're beautiful too. That works well, I guess. I don't know. It's your life, you deal with it. If you're going to whine about how fictional characters are too sexy to you, then I would tell you to cry in the corner instead. Before we end this video, huge thanks to William for the pledge on Patreon. You are fantastic. That's all for the video today. If you like this, you can go ahead, click like button, and subscribe for more. If you wish, you can support me on Patreon. And thanks for watching.